crypto. All the crypto news in one place.
So maybe what are your points of disagreement, and why do you think maybe the younger people are into Bitcoin?
All right, so let's give a little bit of background on this. So you and I we're of the people now. Like, they're reaching out all the time. And someone reached out and said they heard you and Jeff talking about young people, and if I agreed. And I said, I didn't hear it, but no, I don't agree. Now, here's what I'll agree with. My son, when he was 13, he's now 20. So this was a while ago. He already said Bitcoin is for old people. Okay. When he was 13. So I'm not going to differ with you guys on
I thought I was a young buck.
Yeah, so there's two things about this. This is not new news. It's not sexy enough. The gambling generation, they want stuff that can triple in an hour. 10 times. They're not looking for Bitcoin.
That does sound pretty good, by the way.
It does. Yeah. And he was the king of pump and dump. Like, he was all involved. Like, he was looking for these. He was in Reddit all day long as a 13-year-old. I've given his story many times. So I don't disagree with
Jordan's
that.
really training the next generation of Buffetts over there.
He was training me. He gave me into.
By the way, you know this, but a lot of people in the audience don't know this. For those that don't know.
Folks, we got major drama between the White House and Coinbase. So many of you know Coinbase, they backed out on the support for the draft of the crypto market structure bill because there was a lot of things in there which were not great for crypto, mainly the banks lobbying against stablecoin yield on platforms like Coinbase and other exchanges. And I am in agreement with Coinbase. I believe we need to get a proper bill before we push this through. We know the bill is not going to be perfect. There are still going to be some things that we may not like, but there are some major pillars that are being thrown in there by the likes of the banking lobby, Elizabeth Warren, and others. Well, Eleanor Terrett reported that the White House is considering pulling its support for the crypto market structure bill entirely if Coinbase does not come back to the table with a yield agreement.
So it all started with this. It all started with Brian Armstrong from Coinbase saying that he's pulling support from the Clarity Act, and that for a lot of things. That in his view, it's not the perfect bill, and we will not get the perfect bill. I'll get back to that later. But yeah, he decided that the prohibition of DeFi, stablecoin yields, a lot of things here. And we need to understand one thing regarding Coinbase. Okay, and I think this is really important to understand the Coinbase model. Coinbase is like a crypto bank. Coinbase generated around $400 million of revenue from stablecoin yields last year. Okay, just for you to understand why he's pulling this and why he's so worried about this. He's so worried about this.
Listen closely to what Paul Atkins did say.
Tokenization is the idea of using then smart contracts or tokens on chain to be able to that represent, say, an underlying security. And so then that tokenized security is a security and would be subject to SEC rules by law. But the idea is that if it's on chain, on a blockchain, then there's much more transparency as to where it is. Right now, there's a bit of opacity as to who owns what and where the company usually doesn't even know where its who its shareholders are and where the shareholders reside, where the shares reside. So tokenization has the benefit of potentially having, instead of T+1 now.
Paul and others are straightening it out, but payments and money transfers are costly and take days or even weeks to clear. Under this bill, the entire ancient system will be eligible for a 21st century upgrade using the state-of-the-art crypto technology. Who would have thought we would have been saying that 2 years after?
Decades out of date, that's what he said. Trump is telling us that we're on the verge of transforming our entire financial system. Maybe that's why his son started that mining facility. Wait, Eric Trump, the Eric Trump, runs a Bitcoin mining facility? Oh yeah, he does.
Hey friends, Eric Trump. Welcome to American Bitcoin. It's a little sneak peek of our facility in Texas, using American energy to mine Bitcoin right here on American soil. We could not be more proud of this facility. 35,000 of these servers right here, all liquid cooled, securing the network. mining Bitcoin. Every single day we mine about 2% of the world's Bitcoin supply, and we safeguard it every single day. So when people say that cryptocurrency is intangible, it's not. It's very tangible. And this right here, guys, is living proof. Take a look at the company. Come join us. We could not be more excited about our growth. I truly believe.
Rumors are swirling in intelligence circles that the United States didn't just inherit a country in chaos. They may have just stumbled upon the world's largest state-owned Bitcoin stash. We are talking about potentially 600,000 Bitcoin, $60 billion at today's prices. If this stash exists, and if the United States government gets the private keys, they don't just become a whale, they become the market. But here's the problem. Nobody knows if the keys even exist anymore. So today, we are going to dive into the mystery of Venezuela's Bitcoin. We are going to look at how a sanctioned regime could have secretly built a fortune in BTC. And we're going to answer the question on everyone's mind. What happens to your portfolio if the US government decides to dump or lock up 3% of the total Bitcoin supply?
Recently, Florida just had news about entering the strategic Bitcoin reserve space. Trump is even dunking on the previous administration for selling Bitcoin, mostly during the Biden administration.
Fortunately, in recent years, the U.S. government has foolishly sold tens of thousands of additional Bitcoin that were worth billions and billions of dollars had they not sold them, but they did sell them, mostly during the Biden administration. Not a good thing to have done. From this day on, America will follow the rule that every Bitcoin knows very well: never sell your Bitcoin. That's a little phrase that they have. I don't know if that's right or not. Who the hell knows, right? Who knows? Who knows? But so far, it's been right. And well, let's keep it that way.
But here's the key point. Adoption stories are springing up all over the place just in the beginning of this new year. I wonder what will spring up in spring or October. I'm definitely dialing in my Rustin today with all the bullish news.
What do you make of Bitcoin price, the idea of the 4-year cycle now as we come into the end of 2025?
Yeah, it has been a wild year. You already mentioned it. And while in the past we try to put the logic into the 4-year cycles, related to the halving cycles, potentially even the election cycles in the US or the overall economical cycles, where it's not entirely clear what had the biggest impact. I think by now, looking at all the institutional adoption that we're seeing in the market with all the big names that entered the game now, the volume that came into the market, I think there is just bigger forces that are driving prices nowadays. And it's probably not the 4-year cycles anymore. So I think that kind of theory is probably broken. I mean, still certain models continue to make sense, in the long run, like stock to flow, etc. But overall, I think the 4-year halving cycle kind of rationale is broken because more geopolitical situation, the macroeconomic situation, election cycles have a much bigger impact nowadays, also to crypto prices, and especially with the institutional adoption we have been seeing lately.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So that happened, but the moral of the story here is that you have to be very careful. Even someone that has accumulated 282 million in crypto got hacked through a social engineering, right? And so it's very, very important. Social engineering, part of that is also fake people and fake imposters. So just remember that I will never contact you on social media asking you to sign up to anything or to send me anything. These are fake accounts by people in all kinds of places around the world. It's not me. Don't engage with them.
So we'll see what happens. Just a delay, so to speak. All right, so I wanted to focus on this is kind of a clickbait article. But I would like to talk about it a little bit because I was contacted by a good friend earlier in the week that said, hey, I just heard that Ledger and Trezor are merging. Wow, or something like that. And what do I do to get ready for this? And I was like, that has got to be a scam. And it is, or was, it probably still is. So this article sort of takes some liberties, right? Ledger users hit by phishing scam after global e-data breach exposes order information. So they're directly linking these two events. someone should let them know that there have been scams and phishing scams and fake ledger emails and text and letters before.
This is why I said that ISO 20022 is so important to focus on. Not because it's a price driver, not because it's huge for assets. It's a crucial piece connecting digital and TradFi. Fiat and digital currency settlement with Citi, digital asset transaction exchange with Northern Trust and Reserve Bank of Australia, bridging tokenized assets with UBS Asset Management and Chainlink. With this work now complete, we're focused on adding a blockchain-based ledger to our infrastructure stack to enable real-time 24/7 cross-border payments in collaboration with more than 30 global banks. We are paving the way for our members to adopt digital assets and currencies with confidence and at scale.
Price on that. Also, the spike that we saw recently in Monero was apparently due to a victim who lost $282 million, absolutely crazy. And they were laundering money essentially through Monero. So keep that in mind, guys. Crazy things are happening in the crypto space, even though the price is not really doing anything in particular right now. It's the calm before the storm, as we're going to see a lot of volatility throughout the beginning of next week, I believe. So let's see, guys. That's what I got for you.
Now let's talk about Ethereum, because Ethereum must pass the walkaway test, or others call it the Bahamas test, in order to endure 100 years. Topics like quantum resistance, scalable architecture, and better block building, this type of elements have to be fulfilled in order for Ethereum to pass this walkaway test. Now, Vitalik Buterin specifically is talking about this type of test because he's saying this type of network cannot be dependent on technological changes or on single people actually working on the platform itself. It has to be not a single person. It has to be kind of this community aspect, but at the same time, the foundation has to be so strong for it to work 100 years. Now, currently with Ethereum, that's not the case. Quantum resistance is a huge topic.
The fact is that most people don't understand the difference. They have RippleNet with xCurrent, which is their network for banks to communicate and transfer value. Pretty simple. This is essentially a swift replacement for messaging, no XRP required. But then they have their ODL, or their on-demand liquidity product. And this one actually uses XRP as the bridge for real-time asset settlement. So if you send something in dollars, it can be converted into bolivars, but first it would pass through XRP. But here's the brutal truth. With over 300 banks and financial institutions already signed up for RippleNet by 2019, the vast majority were using xCurrent, and they were using it for messaging only. No XRP involved. Major institutions like Santander, American Express, Bank of America, PNC Bank, they all adopted RippleNet. So yes, they were partners of Ripple, but they were not partners of XRP. Zero usage. The actual ODL users for XRP were small remittance companies like MoneyGram, which partnered with Ripple in 2019. But unfortunately, they wound down that relationship in 2021. Qualix in Mexico, Cambridge Global Payments, SendFriend in the Philippines, some Asian corridors with SBI Remit in Japan and Siam Commercial Bank in Thailand. All of these are good partnerships, certainly, but they don't get you the big chunk of that $190 trillion industry.
South Korea's National Assembly has passed legislation creating a tokenized securities framework that will take effect in January 2027. The South Korean law is a net positive for Ripple and XRP because it legitimizes on-chain securities in a major crypto active market and creates a regulated lane where XRPL-based tokenization and custody solutions can compete for institutional business. South Korea amended its Capital Markets Act and Electronic Securities Act to formally recognize tokenized securities issued on distributed ledger and legal financial products. Qualified firms can now directly issue and manage digital securities on blockchain under a new issuer account management and a licensing regime with full supervision by the Korean financial regulator.
Trump just announced something that is a huge escalation, a huge tariff escalation that could affect the markets pretty heavily, I'd say, on Monday. I tweeted out just yesterday, what is Trump going to announce in 5 hours that's going to ruin the market over the weekend? And I say that kind of jokingly, but the fact is he's announced several big announcements, or just, pulled out the leader of a country on Friday. So I was curious if you'd do something like this again. And yeah, he just announced something that everyone is talking about right now. And it could be pretty big for the future of America. And global relations could affect companies, could affect crypto, everything.
Let's get into the news. President Donald Trump announced that tariffs ranging from 10 to 25% will be imposed on products imported from European Union countries. Trump stated the decision was intended to increase pressure on Denmark to buy Greenland and that it was based on national security grounds. Now, according to Trump, the United States has effectively subsidized Denmark and EU countries for many years. However, tougher measures are necessary for the sake of world peace and security. The president argued that China and Russia are interested in Greenland, stating that the region's strategic importance has increased and that under current security conditions, only the U.S. can play a decisive role there. According to the decision, a 10% tariff will be applied to all products originating from Denmark, as well as Norway, Sweden, France, Germany.
I'm asking you, in the poll right now, by the end of 2026, who do you think is going to have the rights to Greenland? And a lot of the people are saying the United States. Now, this is obviously new to me, and I think to a lot of people. Let me show you this. I'll refresh. BRICS news. European Union to suspend trade deal with the U.S. France warns the U.S. seizure of Greenland would, jeopardize economic relations. EU Commissioner Vice President says Greenland belongs to Greenland, of course. Piers Morgan says the UK should repurchase the United States. After all, it was ours once. It will enhance our North Atlantic security. So obviously that's maybe a joke. I saw it and I'm like, oh, brother. It's getting pretty funny nowadays. Canadian Prime Minister Carney arrives in Doha for trade talks with Qatar. And more info.
Great. In the movie, at the center of Metropolis stands the new Tower of Babel, and it is run by one man, Joe Fredersen, the head of the city. He watches everything on massive screens. He controls the energy. He controls the flow of everything. He is the ultimate central planner, and he believes the system is too complex for the hands to understand. He believes he must control the ledger. And, just like in the movie, when you centralize power in one tower, the only way to maintain order is total surveillance. Today, in 2026, this is the private central bank, their corporate cronies, and political puppets. In the movie, Fredersen spies on his own son, he spies on the workers, he spies on everything. This is the digital panopticon. This is exactly what Christine Lagarde, head of the European Central Bank, is pushing with the digital euro, a CBDC, or central bank digital currency, and what the US is pushing with the new 1099 DA forms that require brokers to report all transactions occurring on or after January 1st, 2025 going forward. They want to see every transaction we make, just like Fredersen watches every machine. Big Brother is building a one-way glass house where they can see in, but we cannot see out. Amazing, right? Well, here's the craziest part. This gives me chills. Check it out. In the movie, the workers are organizing. They're listening to a woman named Maria, who preaches peace, patience, and nonviolence. She actively tries to stop the workers from destroying the machines and quietly speaks in the catacombs about the story of the Tower of Babel.
So right now, forward-looking inflation is already telling us the inflation fight is basically over and more easing will happen in 2026. This also explains why Trump keeps pushing the Fed to cut rates faster. He has said many times that rates are being held too high while the economy is already slowing. If real inflation is closer to around 1.6, then the Fed is reacting to old data, not current conditions. This is something that the Fed has had a problem with over the past 5 years. Since basically the pandemic, they are always late. They're always reacting late. And that's one of the big stripes that President Trump has with Powell. He calls him too late Powell because he keeps making these decisions too late. He was too late to raise interest rates. He's too late to reduce interest rates, right? He was saying, oh no, there's no inflation. We're not having a situation. And then inflation started going bananas, right? So he's been late multiple times. And now, listen, this is going to put pressure on Powell more about, President Trump telling him he needs to reduce interest rates. But if the numbers are telling us there's inflation is dropping and the job market is weak, right?
Well, even the last two bear cycles, quantitative tightening was just starting.
when these moves were happening. And so we do have, right, these previous 1, 2, 3 times that the bear market started. But really what I wanted to zoom in on, and I really want to point this out because I think even right now we might get rejection and some short-term dip or volatility. I just don't think it's a bear market. But what I wanted to really point out to you and highlight to you is there was this other 4th time where the 20 fell below the 50. And that is post quantitative tightening ending in 2019 and then going into this 2020 move. Now, I realize this was a COVID crash, right? But even still, we were having this consolidation of the 20 falling towards the 50 anyway at this moment, post 2019 quantitative tightening ending. So please keep in mind, this was not the beginning of a bear market. So we can zoom out and say, yeah, you know what? Like bear market, bear market, bear market. But please remember, and this is way more in line with liquidity cycles and PMI, this 20 falling below the 50 is so much more similar to where we are right now. It was not the beginning of a bear market. There was downside in store, and there might be downside in store right now. I don't like saying it, but it could be very much in play.
So let's get straight into it, guys. So what you can see right now for Bitcoin is that we are resting on my support level at $95,000. It is trying to keep the Bitcoin price above this point. You can see the very clear path here for these candles. First candle, we went down to the orange line. We immediately saw a bounce toward the upside. Second candle, we were also resting on my support level. However, we had a higher high here on this particular candle. Right now, we haven't been able to have any meaningful rally on this daily time frame, any decent rally towards the upside. Instead, we're just grinding lower. You can see that this candle is actually, if we close it like this, printing a lower low on a candle closing basis. We have had 4 candles on the daily time frame in a row here, and this looks not super strong.
Okay, folks, let's kick it off with the price of Bitcoin, because this week or this coming week, we should anticipate that Bitcoin should make another big move. Right now, we have a pullback to retest support levels, but we, of course, had a major breakout last week where Bitcoin went from $90,000 to over $97,000. The bulls are still in control on the daily chart based on the MACD, and the RSI still has room to run before we become overbought. On the weekly, we're seeing some positive signs as well, with the RSI also having room to run, and the bears, which are in control right now, are losing momentum big time per the MACD. So when that flips green, the bulls will be in full control, and that would be really good. There are a lot of people calling for the next target being $106,000. One analyst on X shared a chart highlighting the following, saying this ascending triangle has a target of $106,000.
So, did you enjoy the that? Let me know in the comments.